So just download that and then put the add-on on your desktop. So I have the UE4 vehicle add-on on my desktop, and the next thing I'm going to do is install it to our Blender, then install the add-on so that we know our vehicle. So the next thing you want to do is either create your vehicle or import your vehicle. And when you import it or create it, you want to make sure that your vehicle is in front of the x-axis. So we can see this by this little panel, and we can see my vehicles in front of the x-axis. Then once you have that, if we just click N, or you can just click that little button here. Then we go to the UE4 vehicle thing. Next, you want to click set unit scale and then click upscale objects. Okay, I'm not sure why that didn't work, but I found if I just click on it and then click upscale objects, it will upscale it and make everything fine. So next, you need to select the different parts of your car.
So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can make some drivable cars in Unreal Engine 4. Let's start with the tutorial. So as you can see, this car model is already rigged, and this is oriented in the positive direction of the x-axis. So that is quite important for Unreal Engine. And if I select the bones, all the bones are facing towards the positive direction of the y-axis. And in total, we have 5 bones. So for those who don't know how rigging works in Blender, I'm going to show them how to do that. But if you are someone who already knows how rigging works, okay, so this is the rigging part, and as you can see, the car should be facing in the positive direction of the x-axis, and each part of the car, each wheel is an individual mesh. So we have in total 5 meshes, the 4 wheels and the car body. So now we are going to start by making the rig. Shift A, we are going to add a single bone. In order to see the bone, we'll turn on the X-ray mode. And we're going to rotate this -90. And the bone should be facing the y-axis. This is quite. And we're bone. In order, we're going to start by making the rig. Shift A, we are going to add a single bone. In order to see the bone, we'll turn on the X-ray mode. And we're going to rotate this -90. And the bone should be facing the y-axis. This is quite important. Move the bone up on the z-axis. The position of this bone on the z-axis doesn't matter. Okay, now we are going to go in the edit mode, and we are going to extrude a bone from that. And after you have extruded this bone, we need to detach a bone from that. And after you have extruded this bone, we need to detach this bone. So to detach this bone, you can select all these bones by shift selecting them. You can press Alt P and you can disconnect the bone. So what will this do is, this will keep the parent-child relationship, but this will allow you to move the bone. So just move this bone until it lines up with a wheel. At this point, you can also scale the bone down and you can move it inwards. So this is quite important. Just move it inwards. And repeat the process for the 3 wheels. So Shift D, duplicate them and just position them. And make sure that all the bones are facing in the positive direction of the y-axis. Okay, now we are done with the rig. We are going to select all the bones in the object mode, and we are going to apply the transformations. And after applying all the transforms, under the object, set origin, and we are going to set the origin to the geometry. So now our skeleton is ready, and we can apply the skeleton to the mesh. So we are going to select all the mesh components one by one, and you can do that by shift and selecting them. And at the end, select the skeleton. You can turn off the X-ray mode. And now once you have your selection, you can press Ctrl P to parent this, and we need to parent this with empty groups. Okay, so after that, we are still not done with our rigging process. So we are going to go back in the pose mode, and we are going to select the front wheel bone, and we are going to start renaming all these bones. So go under the bone panel, and we are going to rename this bone to something which is quite easy to understand. So this is the front left bone, so we are going to rename that to FL. And similarly, we are going to rename this to front right. We are going to select the rear right bone and rename that to RR. And we are going to select the rear left bone and rename that to rear left. And now if you go to the vertex groups panel, you can see all these vertex groups. So the vertex groups have our bone name. So it's time to assign all the faces to the respective vertex groups. So select your wheel, come in the edit mode. And this is the front left wheel. So select the front left vertex group and assign that. And make sure that all the faces are selected. So similarly, select the rear left wheel, hit tab to go in the edit mode, double tap A to select all the geometry in that. And you can select the rear left wheel and assign that. Okay, so you can repeat this process until everything is done. So now that we are done with the rigging process, we can export this. So file, export. And here we have a bunch of options. We are going to rename this object to something like car UE4. And you can change the path mode to copy if you have any textures in your car mesh. Under the object types, we are going to select the armature and the mesh. Path mode to copy if you have any textures in your car mesh. Under the and you can change the path mode to copy if you have any textures in your car mesh. Under the object types, we are going to select the armature and the mesh. And we are going to change the forward axis to X. And we are going to change the up axis to Z. We can change the smoothing group to face. Turn off add leaf bones. You can also turn off the bake animations. And now you can finally go and export that. Now we are in Unreal Engine and we can finally import our mesh. So you can right click and import assets. And Unreal Engine will give us all the options for the import. Make sure that skeletal mesh and the skeleton both are selected. And make sure that the physics asset is selected. You can turn on create materials, but for now I'm going to leave it.
Haven't tried. I'm going to come up here also, and let's see, where is it? Bear with me. Go ahead and press N, and that'll bring up your little toolbar here. I'm going to go down to view. And in here, I'm going to come down to focal length, and where it says and, you can see it's set to 10 meters. I'm just going to change that to 100 meters just so I have a little bit more room on my camera. If I don't do that, eventually my camera will start clipping. I'm going to close that down by pressing N again. And then right here, under overlays, if I open that up, we have our grid scale. And I'm just going to set the grid scale also to 0.01 so that my grid matches my units. All right, so basic setup. My camera will start clipping. I'm going to close that down by pressing N again. And a little toolbar here, I'm going to go down to view. Clipping this will do the same thing, but I haven't tried. This is unit scale. We're just going to, because right now it's a metric is to get your units set correctly. So that seems to be like the biggest hurdle, is making sure units are set right. So over to the right here, we have this toolbar. I'm going to come down to this little cone, sphere, little cube thing. This is our units and scene settings. So go ahead and open that up and go to units. And we'll make sure that we're in metric. It's in metric by default, but we want to make sure we're also in the correct size. I believe you can do this also by changing metric to centimeters. I haven't tried, but you're welcome to. Because what we're going to do here, where it says unit scale, we're just going to, because right now it's in meters, we're just going to do 0.01, which is basically changing it to centimeters. Okay. So I assume flipping this will do the same thing, but I haven't tried. I'm going to come up here also, and let's see, where is it? Bear with me. Go ahead and press N, and that'll bring up your little toolbar here. I'm going to go down to view. And in here, I'm going to come down to focal length, and where it says and, you can see it's set to 10 meters. I'm just going to change that to 100 meters just so I have a little bit more room on my camera. If I don't do that, eventually my camera will start clipping. And set to 10 meters. I'm just going to change that to 100 meters just so I have a little bit more room on my camera. If I don't do that, eventually my camera will start clipping. I'm going to close that down by pressing N again. And then right here, under overlays, if I open that up, we have our grid scale. And I'm just going to set the grid scale also to 0.01 so that my grid matches my units. All right, so basic setup. And I have this cube here. Go ahead and nuke that cube, just make another one. So to make another one, do Shift A. It's going to bring up my add here. I do a mesh cube. And once I do that, I'm going to get this little dialog down here on the left where it says add cube. I'm going to hit the little arrow. And you don't want to click on anything. So if I click off, I'll actually lose that dialog. So just make sure that you don't interact with anything. Okay, so let's go back and add that in again. And here, I just want to make sure that I have the proper size of my cube. I'm going to go ahead and change this from 2 centimeters to 100 centimeters or 1 meter. Either one works. So if I type 1m, that is 1 meter. Or if I do 100 cm, that's also 1 meter. Once I change that, I'm going to come over to the right here, and I'm going to click on this little orange square. If you don't see the orange square, that means your object isn't selected. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to change my scale. And that, my scale size is 1 times however big my object is. So my object is currently 1 meter cube. So that's 1 times 1 meter there. So I'm going to make it 3 meters wide. Or, sorry, that's my x. I'm going to make that 5. And the x, for my width, I'll do 3 meters. And then my height, I'll just do 1.5. The scaling doesn't really matter. I'm just picking some arbitrary values here. And then once I have my scale I'm going to come up, and you can see we have object mode. I'm going to go down to edit mode. You can also get there by hitting tab. Okay. Oh, and one other thing we want to make sure we do while we're in here, and I showed that earlier but I didn't, is change this tab here from global to local. That way all the units are in local coordinates because that's what Unreal wants to know. Okay. All right, so in edit mode, I'm going to come up right next to edit, grab the edge selection, select this edge here, and I'm going to move that down. You can do that by grabbing this little move tool and move it down. That's perfectly valid. You can also hit the G key and then choose the axis you want, which is Z, and then you can also just move your cursor, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to do that. So now I have kind of like the same shape that we had in meters. You can see I've done this before. So now I just want to hit tab to get out of edit mode, go back to object mode. I'm going to go ahead and make a new object, Shift A. Let's go ahead and create a cylinder. Now my cylinder pops in. Radius, I'm going to do 80 centimeters. To the right, I'm going to hit the Z left. Copy that. If you look, you actually see that we have meters and centimeters being drawn. I'll do a -1. And I'm taking. Okay, so they're about all the same. Let's go to a side. Oh, let me go ahead and change it first. Before I do that, let's do rear left. All right, let's go to our side view. I'm going to hit this little X here. And then the Y. You can see that our vehicle and our wheels are not quite on the ground, so let's go ahead and select the vehicle. I'm going to name that car body. So car. Good enough. So this will probably go over to Unreal just fine, but I want to make sure that I clear out my transforms for the car body. So let's go ahead and select the car body. And you can see that we have our scale has been adjusted. We want to make sure that that is set back. Important for Unreal that we have X being forward, Z is up, and then Y is left and right. Our wheels should be the same as they are. Okay. Go ahead and select all 4 wheels. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then select the car body, and then Control P to parent. And I'm going to do a simple object parent, so the top one. So now my wheels and my car body are one thing. And all I want to do is export. So let's go up to File, Export Selection. Sorry, that's a Maya thing. We'll just go to Export and do FBX. Find wherever you're going to save it to. I'm going to save it to Blender tutorial. This bad boy working. So in Unreal, let's go ahead and pick a version. I'll do 4.23. All right, so I'm going to do a blank project. This is my default that I set up, scalable, no content. And I'll call this Blender car tutorial create.
Definitely good enough for what I'm going for here. So let's download. So I've added the Jeep into the project and set up the most simplest here. So let's the project. I don't see why this wouldn't work. It's definitely good enough for what I'm going for here. Brand new level, just a basic level for testing vehicles, but I don't even have a vehicle yet, so now premium car because then I'd be giving myself a free vehicle. Because my Battle Royale template is free for anyone who wants it, I can't use a premium car because then I'd be giving the car for free. So I have to get so you can click in any model, which I think is going to be perfectly fine for the project. I don't see why this wouldn't work. It's definitely good enough for what I'm going for here. Set up the most simplest material you've ever seen in your life, and here's what it looks like. Doesn't look bad at all. And set up the most simple. So let's download. So I've added the Jeep into the project and set up the most simplest material you've ever seen in your life. And here's what it looks like. Doesn't look bad at all. Very simple. But again, we're going for simplicity here because this is just going to be a simple vehicle that works in the game. But before I say that you can go ahead and add your own car and have fun with it, let me tell you, there's a lot more setup that goes into this, a lot more headaches to come. Let me tell you that works in the game. But before I say that you can go ahead and add your own car and have fun with it, let me tell you, there's a lot more setup that goes into this, a lot more headaches to come. Like I said, headache. Now, in order to drive a vehicle, you need to create the correct class. In Unreal Engine, it is called a wheeled vehicle. It is a type on. It's not a character. So let's create that here. And
Alright, in this episode we are going to find out how to bring a car.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and even though Christmas is behind us, if you're an Unreal Engine developer, Christmas comes the first Tuesday of every month. And guess what? Today, at least as I'm recording this, it is the first Tuesday of the month. That means we get that was pretty straightforward. An inventory system, set of blueprints for handling inventory in your game, plus some UI files to make it work. Next up we have Dark Forest. This one is also pretty straightforward. This is a collection
In Unreal,
How to set it up in Blender and bring it to Unreal and going to find out how to bring a car, how to set it up in Blender and bring it to Unreal and drive it about like a joyrider. So let's figure this out and get it done. Up for transfer. First things first is the scaling. You want to make sure if you hit the scene tab right there, I think it's the scene tab, yep, scene properties, open up the units, drop down, make sure it says metric there, meters in the length, and 0.01, so just 0.01 in the unit scale, and turn on separate units. That makes it easier to read what's going on. It's got meters and centimeters there. Then you're going to want to scale this up because this will actually be really small. Wheels aren't going with in the unit scale, and turn on separate units. That makes it easier to read what's going on. It's got meters and centimeters there. Then you're going to want to scale this up because this will actually be really small. Wheels aren't going with it. This will actually be really small, so you need to scale it up so that the vehicle is